Grace Hudson, an accounts manager at Halliburton, and of course, a Guyanese woman. You are one of 8 persons who have told their stories in a regional book that really brought together women in oil and gas. First of all, tell me, Grace, I know there are a number of Guyanese women in oil and gas today. How were you selected to contribute to this book?
Well, it's quite interesting. I have to add, it was a little last minute, but I participated last year in the Suriname Energy Conference. I believe that would have been in June. I sat on a team, a panel, and we were discussing ways in which we can create and maximize opportunities for women in energy and industry, both looking from the opportunities on the entrepreneurship side as well as opportunities for working with the companies. And so I used the experience that I had at Halliburton to offer some advice to women who are interested in joining. On that panel, there was Miss Deborah Benjamin. She's also a contributor to this book from Trinidad. And she shared with me that the author was working on this piece and they needed someone from Guyana to contribute. And there was the opportunity. I saw it and I said, I think this is going to be great, because I've always wanted to use my voice and my experience to be able to share with other women who can benefit from it as well.
And I think you've done just that. I managed to read your chapter, although I've not completed the book. But written by Celeste Mohammed from Trinidad. The book is titled A Different Energy.
Yeah.
What is this different energy, Grace?
So I think it's really a play on words, but what we wanted to highlight is the oil and gas industry has been a male-driven or male-dominant industry for so long, and in some regards, rightfully so, Kurt. However, we wanted to acknowledge that women, in all that they brought a different kind of energy to the workplace. Their empathy, the way they manage teams, the way that they manage their homes as well as do the job, it's a different kind of energy that required a different kind of adaptation to what is required to ensure that women can continue to work in the oil and gas industry as well as be able to support their homes. So it was a play on words to say women bring a different energy.
Right.
Yes.
The book opened with the quote from Margaret Thatcher, who's one of my favorite persons, that says, if you want anything, ask a man. But if you want anything done, ask a woman. Grace, I think that really puts into perspective what the book is all about, because as much as it is a woman empowerment book that offers advice, it's also speaking to men in some sorts. Could we talk about that?
Yes, you know, I said this last year at the panel in Guyana. I spoke at the panel for women in energy as well as Suriname. We are having these conversations on the experiences of women in the industry. And I think the whole conversation on women empowerment is so very focused on talking to women. But we can only talk to ourselves for so long.
Right.
A big part of the solution, because that's what we're looking at, solutions, is talking to men. When we talk about the unconscious biases, when we talk about systemic barriers within the industry or any industry as a matter of fact, we need to make sure that men are a part of that conversation. Otherwise, we're not really going to arrive at solutions. We will have 100% empowered women, but we're not going to have many men who really understand what our experiences are. So this book is not just for the young girls, the mature professional women. It's also for the men so that they can learn about these very 8 unique experiences that existed across the Caribbean region, and that they can take something from that in hopes that they can maybe adjust their management style, maybe make some adjustment in terms of the way that they engage women in the workplace. And hopefully they can have a laugh, hopefully they can have a cry, but definitely be able to connect on a human level with every story that was shared.
You know, oftentimes when we talk about women in oil and gas, we talk about it from the point of view of the challenges. We look at the numbers, we say it's a male-dominated sector, it's hard for women to get in, and even when they get in, they face all of these, as I said, challenges. But I like what this book does, because it, as much as it offers advice, it offers insights into the lives of these 8 women from across the region to show how they have been able to rise to the top of their game regardless of what sector they work in, whether it's the sector of accounting or a more technical job. Could we go through, in some degree, what are some of those advices, particularly in your chapter, Grace, that you've laid out for women looking for employment in the oil and gas industry?
Well, the preamble that I'll put to that is this book is not a book that captures challenges. This is not a male bashing book, but this in fact is a comprehensive guide for women, regardless of where you sit on the continuum of age, regardless of where you sit on the continuum of experience, as you mentioned, technical or non-technical, but also from the positions of leadership, whether you are a new entrant or you're a seasoned vice president or CEO. We have 8 diverse stories that were shared. We have, I believe it's 4 from Trinidad, 3 from Suriname, and myself from Guyana. And after reading all of those stories, Kurt, I cried sometimes. I had a really good laugh. And sometimes I was like, absolutely, I agree. And then there are times that I said, I wish I knew this before I started the industry. And I'm saying this to say that there's such a diverse experience shared in this book because every woman is unique that shared her story. But the message that I give, in mine in particular, to women entering the industry, it's pretty good. And I'm saying that because of the entire continuum, I am the youngest. That is reflected in that book. Youngest in terms of age, but also youngest in terms of experience in the industry compared to Trinidad and Suriname. Guyana just joined.
Well, you think you offer a unique perspective being the youngest in the bunch?
Then again, I wouldn't say so. But I spoke to, because my message was so centered around the women that are in Guyana that want to join this industry, my advice to them were twofold. If you're not working in the industry and you want to join the industry, it's really 2 things. The first thing, know where you're starting. What does that mean? Are you starting from experience or are you fresh out of the University of Guyana and you just want to get a job? Understanding where you're starting, it helps to determine where you should go. If you're starting from experience, you need to be very focused. You need to be very selective in terms of the opportunities that you take. Your career planning is going to look very different from a young woman who's just left the university, full of passion, full of energy, and just want experience. If you're the second person, take a job. I promise you, just take any job, hopefully one that's in line with what you studied, whether it's accounting or HR or business or petroleum engineering or geoscience. You just take a job, you get the experience, because what I've come to find, Kurt, is that you start this industry in one role, and sometimes in doing it you realize, yeah, I'm not so sure I like this. But the industry provides so many opportunities, and within a lot of these organizations, at least like the one I work for, you have the opportunity to say, hey, I want to do something else. What else is there? And there are a plethora of opportunities for you to choose from. I know procurement specialists, supply chain specialists that have an industrial engineering degree. I know people working in supporting business development that have a chemical engineering degree. You know, I know if you studied law, you're likely to become a lawyer. If you studied HR, you're likely to become work in the HR department. But even if you wanted to make a switch midway in your career, it is possible, and that's one of the things that I love. So it's like going to a buffet, you know? I like this, but I want to try something else. And I'm so happy that the industry provides that opportunity. So regardless of where you sit on the spectrum of having experience or you don't have experience, there is an opportunity for you. You just need to find it. And there are many places that you can find it, at least for Guyana, and I'm sure it's the same for other countries. And you need to apply and pursue it.
I'm happy that you've said that, because oftentimes people hear a job title and they look at their qualifications and they're like, oh, I'm not suited for this job.
Well, one of the things that I've learned about this industry is they train people when they start. When you start working with a company, they train you. Sometimes some jobs say entry level. They need to ensure that you have a degree or an associate's degree or a technical degree. I want to just add at this point here, so many people underestimate the value of a certification from the Ghana Technical Institute. That is so valuable, right? So they might ask for that, but there's so much of the training that's going to be done in the company. So there are opportunities where you might see that, but you can still apply. You might be invited to an interview and you just might get the job. You know?
I'm happy you mentioned your own emotions that emerged from reading the book and reading the stories of the other women, because when I read your chapter, I went through sort of that emotional roller coaster where I laughed sometimes and chuckled, but then it brought me to a certain level of seriousness and reflection, because I like the fact that you did not only assess your professional life or your career, but you sort of dug back into your childhood. And you also talked about the support you've received from women in the workplace. And I think even in our conversation before this interview, you introduced the word where you said, the book also offers healing. And that is what I feel on the inside, even as a man reading the book, that by listening to these stories and listening to the experiences and the foundation that all of these women stand on, it really brought me to a place of self-reflection. So could we talk about that aspect of the book?
If someone were to read this book with a frame of mind of honesty with themselves, they might be able to identify in reading the stories of every woman, when we talk about the poor experiences that we have had, you might be able to say, hey, I remember when I was this person to someone.
Right.
But then there's, as the story continues, a lot of those people who had those experiences, they stayed high,
Right.
they gave grace, they were very forgiving. So the message of healing comes from a lot of the contributors reminding people to give grace, reminding people to forgive. Yes, you've had some poor experiences, but forgive those people and move on.
Right.
One of the other great things about this book is it encourages people who have been that person, who has not been that supporter, not been that ally. You can wake up tomorrow and change to be a better person. The reality is we're all living a human experience, and in this moment, someone might be treating another female or even another employee, it doesn't matter, poorly. They might not have their realization right now for a number of reasons, but you should still give grace to that person
Right.
in hopes that in a shorter time sooner rather than later, they will come to that realization and they will change for the better. I can tell you, I have a friend who, I expressed to you who that person was.
Celia?
No, not
Oh.
Celia, but I had a friend who, she told me, I know her personality. She is that kind of woman.
Right.
And she said to me, you know, when I read this book, I realized that I was the one that was giving bad energy to women.
Right.
And she didn't know that in the moment. And as she's on that journey of transformation now, she can reflect on that. Unfortunately, she's not in a position to go back to some of those women to say, I am sorry for not being a great friend or a great supporter. I'm sorry for not speaking up. But she told me that I am committed to do that for women going into the future. I'm committed to doing that for younger women, to be a better example, but to also be honest about when I wasn't such a great supporter or advocate. So there's so many lessons. This is really a comprehensive guideline for women, and I don't think it's just subjected to the oil and gas industry in terms of talking about the topic of healing and forgiveness. I think that speaks to the human experience that we're all living.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Before we spread out to broadly talk about the stories of the other women in the book, as we introduce the name Celia, could we talk about who Celia is in your chapter?
You know, that has been the highlight, I think, for most people. It's like, it's what makes them light up after they read the book. And I am so big, and I've been saying this since I was a teenager, that women need to have a better community of support. A better community of support of women who are genuine, who really want to see you win. And nothing that they do should ever be questioned whether it's from a good place, a place of genuineness or not. Celia has been that person for me. I came into this industry having zero experience, lots of professional experience, but zero experience how this industry works. And it was an eye-opener for me. It was a roller coaster at times, and as I like to say, it was like drinking from a fire hose. Celia was that guiding light for me. She helped me to understand organizational politics. She taught me how to be a bit more strategic, how to network with the right kind of people. She showed me the formula for success, but more importantly, she was very honest with me in exposing the things that she didn't do so great, as well as the things that she did do great. And she was like, do not do this. I am telling you, do not do it. And because I learned from that kind of secondhand experience, I missed, you know, some things because I didn't go through that. But Celia is my sounding board in so many ways. She's a mentor, and she's such a great woman. And I thought to myself, if more women can be like Celia, the world would be a better place. So one of the chapters that I have in the book is dedicated to her in just being a better person for people in general. And it's not just about women to women. Yes, that's the primary focus, but let's expand on that. It's just how do you deal with people? Be more gracious, be more willing to share information, be more caring, be more forgiving. And Celia has been that for me. And so I usually tell people that I hope this word will become like a verb in a sense, or adjective rather, you know, be a Celia. A Celia is someone in the professional environment that is willing to support you and help you in any way possible to ensure that you succeed.
Amazing.
I'm grateful to have a Celia.
Celia. Every woman should be a Celia.
A Celia, Celia, yes.
Right. Grace, you've read the stories of the other women in this book. Could you help us to understand the diversity of those stories?
Well, I am not going to give away too much because I want people to buy it, support the book, and to read it. But I'll give you this quick highlight. We include a woman that was a CEO, a CEO of a national oil company. We include a woman who is a vice president of an international energy company now, BP. We include the stories of a team lead who's a geoscientist. We include the stories of a woman who is now managing Satsuli Hydrocarbon Institute. That's like the regulatory agency. Collectively, these women, I think, have in excess of 100 years of experience. Some have 40, some have 20, some have 20. I barely have a little five. But let me tell you, Kurt, every story stood out to me in a very unique way. I captured in the notes of my phone a lot of the quotes that these ladies shared. Giselle shared a story. Giselle was the, I think it's the VP of Corporate Relations at BP in Trinidad. And she said a quote that stuck with me. I think it's to do your best and then add value. I'm like, yes.
It's never good enough.
No, do your best and add value.
Right, okay.
I can live with that. But if I can be honest, because of where I want to go in the energy industry, the story that stood out to me is from the now retired Arlene Chow. She was the former CEO of Heritage Petroleum in Trinidad. And former CEO, so she spoke about the days, the earlier days in Trinidad, working as a geologist. Going into a man walk, you know, as she described it. And she has worked in Alaska, she's worked in Europe, she's worked everywhere. And she has had those experiences of sexual harassment and many other things, but she triumphed. She triumphed time and time and time again. And I'm like, I want to do that.
Yes.
I want to do that. Or at least the thought of doing that is no longer terrifying, because she's been there, she's done it. There are things that I can read from the book and learn from her, and I'm sure I'm going to be successful. So Arlene's story is the most impactful for me so far, because it's a representation of where I hope to be in the, I'll say it optimistically, relatively near future. But all the other women, excellent contributors, and I really want people to read these stories, so I'm not going to give a whole lot, but that's a tad bit on Arlene.
Even if I had intended to just read your chapter and probably close the book, I would say this much, that now my interest is more than piqued to go on to read the other stories of the other women.
Yes, I think for the role that you have in journalism, Giselle's story is going to connect so well with you.
Definitely. I'll read that chapter next.
Corporate relations, yes.
Grace, as we wrap up, could you tell us where is the book available? What is the cost for the book? How could people support it and read all of these amazing stories?
Yes, this book is available on all international booksellers. You can also get it on Amazon. I believe it's Barnes & Noble as well. The book is being published by Word Communications Mata. It's a publishing company in Trinidad, so it's easy to get the book in Guyana. If someone needs it, you can just order it online. The cost, I can't quite remember right now. It should be between maybe $70 or $95, but we really want people to support this book. I encourage you to buy this book, give it to a female friend, give it to a male friend as well, give it to a young girl who wants to join the industry, or even give it to a seasoned professional. It is a comprehensive guideline. Yes.
Any last words? You have so much more to say, right?
I have a few last phrases, but the one thing I would say is that change is possible. When we talk about the innovative and creative solutions that needs to be created for the energy industry, if we're going to keep the conversation specific, women need to be part and parcel of that conversation. And because I'm so big on sustainability, I believe it's important that books like these are important for the young girls. The young girls that are going to get into STEM, that are going to eventually be the leaders of this industry today and tomorrow.
Right.
So my encouragement is to ensure that we're leading with a very good example for the younger generation who are looking to us to determine, is this a field, is this a sector that I should get involved with? And I hope that books like these and testimonies from many other women can be a beacon of light to them.
Thank you, Grace.
You're welcome.